biggest things that I suspect is going to happen with the Matt Stafford preference for airing it out is it's going to force defenders to respect the deep ball. Should stretch the field. Cam Akers averaged 7.3 defenders in the box on his rush attempts last season. That was number 5 in the NFL. That's basically showing that defenses had no respect for Jared Goff's deep ball. His stacked front carry rate, Cam Akers' stacked front carry rate was number 8. His base front carry rate was number 6. And his light front carry rate was number 61. He never got easy touches. Matt Stafford should change that. So let's back up a second. Let's start from the start with Cam Akers, because Cam the MFing Ram has a pretty interesting prospect profile that I feel like a lot of folks got wrong. I mean, let's start with the easy stuff, right? Like Akers, he's a prototype bell cow. He's 5'10", he's 217 pounds, 76 percentile BMI. He's exactly what you're looking for from a bell cow. He dominated his offense in college, 39.8% college dominator according to playerprofiler.com, 90th percentile. He had an impressive 10.4%, 78th percentile target share. He pretty much checks the obvious boxes, right? The issue, and I think the reason pretty much everyone was afraid of Cam Akers, was he had a highly pedestrian 5.0, 26th percentile college yards per carry, which for me is something I don't look at anyway. I don't care what his yards per carry is. We go deeper than yards per carry on this podcast. We know that yards per carry is affected by so many other things outside of the running back's ability. Personnel, usage, stacked boxes, obvious rushing situations. You know, if they're the goal line back, that usually affects things because they're only expected to gain a yard. Like all those kinds of things plays into it. So this is really where you can cue up the let's dive in gif. So Akers, he had one of the worst situations I can ever recall seeing for a top running back prospect. His offensive line was ranked 115th out of 130 offensive lines in college football, according to Football Outsiders line yards metric. That is real not good. Real not good. Personally, I'm a big fan of Graham Barfield's work in regards to his yards created metric. Essentially what he does is he tries to separate the running back from his situation. He only counts the yards the running back earns after the first potential tackle point. Akers, he didn't have a great yards created per attempt. He was 41st out of 54 running backs that Graham has charted. But here's the thing. Akers, again, had a horrible offensive line. There's no question his offensive line was one of the worst we've ever seen. Among the 54 running backs that Graham has charted, Akers was 54th, and 53rd was a long ways away from 54. He was 54th by a wide margin. Despite this, Akers actually ranked 9th in missed tackles forced. Mixed tackles forced is different than broken tackles. This factors in not only broken tackles, also evaded tackles. It doesn't reward players that, broken tackle rate, that rewards players that invite contact or players that just literally can't avoid contact. They're probably not very good. They're just, the grinders. Between the tackles, grinders. Those are the guys that thrive in broken tackle rate. Missed tackles forced, it is picking up that, but it's also picking up the guys that just avoid being tackled. Not getting tackled is a really good skill for running back. So anyways, Cam Akers was very good at not getting tackled. He was 9th out of 54. Again, keep in mind his terrible offensive line. Other players with really bad offensive lines that weren't as bad as Cam Akers' offensive line are Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, and Kareem Hunt. These guys also made defenders miss in the backfield on repeat. I have a hypothesis around this. It's the head of steam phenomenon. Basically, I don't have anything to back this up, but it seems logical to me. If there's a running back that's 220 pounds and they're running at full speed, they're a lot harder to tackle than if it's a running back that is standing still. A standing still running back is much easier to tackle. So when we're talking about guys that have no space, they get the ball and they're already getting tackled and they're making guys miss, that's a special skill. That is unique. That is really, really, really special. It's a gift. Cam Akers has this gift. Perhaps the only thing more impressive than his missed tackle rate is his breakout age. According to playerprofiler.com, Cam broke out at 18.2. He was a friggin' prodigy. And at the RB position, athleticism matters a fair bit. It's not the only thing that matters. So we don't go and, rush out to best case scenario on Jonathan Taylor and say he's generational, because he isn't. But Cam Akers was a very good athlete in his own right. He ran a 4.47 40-yard dash, which is in the 89th percentile. But then when you factor in all of his athletic metrics, I use something called relative athletic score. It comes from Kent Platt at MathBomb on Twitter. So when you use his relative athletic score, Akers comes in with an 8.81 relative RAS. That's what it's short for, or that's what the short version is, RAS. So he has an 8.81 RAS. Very, very good. It's out of 10. He was a phenomenal athlete. And I mean, like, sure, the numbers look good, but this game isn't played in the spreadsheets, as any data analyst will tell you. To be honest, though, I do like film for running backs, and like film grades for running backs seem to be very predictive. Lance Zierlein, he does prospect grades on NFL.com, and he has proven to be remarkably good at it. His grades out-hit draft capital by a fair margin, and that's really hard to do considering the guys that are making the draft capital, like the general managers and the coaches selecting these players, are selecting them to use them. Lance is saying this guy's really good, and it doesn't matter when or where he gets drafted. That's a really good sign. So how did Akers show up? That's the question we're here for. Well, DeAndre Swift was number 1 in 2020. Jonathan Taylor with a 6.41 was number 2. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Cam Akers both had a 6.39, and J.K. Dobbins had a 6.38. So Taylor, Edwards-Helaire, Akers, and Dobbins were all virtually identical, according to Lance Zierlein, which is to say they were all really good. So once you factor all this stuff in and then you combine it with his second round draft capital, this gives Akers my seal of approval, like stamp of approval. He was bulletproof. And then how does his rookie season go? Well, I mean, game 2, we got the first 3 handoffs. And then he fell on the pointy end of the football and suffered a rib cartilage separation, which sounds incredibly painful. Anyway, the expected recovery is 2 to 3 months. It's more of a pain management thing, though. He missed 2 games, but once he returned, he played sparingly. Like, he barely saw the ball. He barely saw the field, in fact. And then there's this really great thread on Twitter by Jacob Sanderson. You can find him on Twitter at FF_RTDB. And he says, and I'm quoting him here, "Okay, now, it's week 10, we're off the bye, and everyone's now healthy and integrated into the offense. What we first see is a full-blown 3-man committee. Weeks 10 to 12, touches, yards, touchdowns. So Akers had 24, Henderson had 28, Brown had 17. Akers had 141 yards, Henderson had 61, and Brown had 98. He severely outplayed his competition. And he's seeing more defenders in the box than either of them. 2 real good signs. Real good signs. By week 13, Akers is completely taken over. And then a weird thing happens in week 14. And this is the one that people keep coming back to me saying, well, Akers only took over because Henderson was injured. Here's the thing. Again, Jacob Sanderson, same thread. Week 4, this thread, by the way, it goes like week 1 all the way through the season. It's phenomenal. Week 14, Henderson practices in full. No injuries. Henderson, clean bill of health. Akers, limited in practice. Injured. What happens in week 14? Akers goes out and touches the ball 31 times. Henderson touches it twice. The Rams gave the unhealthy running back an absurdly lopsided touch distribution. That means Akers is the starter. It's no longer a committee. Akers has taken over. And then he goes on to say, Akers took over because, and these are some options, he earned it. Coaches wanted him to. Hot hand. Basically any narrative you like, but not because of injury. Akers just took over. It's a completely different scenario at this point. So my question is, should we expect this to continue? And heck, yes, of course we should. Akers was bulletproof. Henderson actually, in my process, grades out as a long shot. Akers' hit rate potential is very, very high. Like the historical hit rate of players in the bulletproof bucket at the running back position is greater than 75%. Henderson's long shot production or profile, that's a 25% hit rate in that bucket. It's a long shot. So then we have, after the rookie season, Cam was bulletproof, and then he gained value. I use ADP trends for running backs as well. So being bulletproof and gaining ADP, there's 23 running backs that have ever done that. 19 of them hit. That's 83%. Henderson, a long shot and a face planter. He lost value after his rookie season. 0 of 13. We've never seen one hit a top 12 season. Now that's obviously for top 12 seasons. There is a chance that Henderson could still be a thorn in his side. So the question is Henderson good, or is he replacement level? Or is he just nowhere near as good as Cam Akers? And therefore, we can assume that Cam Akers is the bell cow going forward. Let's keep going. So as rookies, this is comparing rookie year to rookie year. Akers had 625 rushing yards. Henderson had 147. He was third on the team behind Malcolm Brown as a rookie. That ain't good. PFF grades. Akers, 68.7. Henderson, 68.1. Advantage, Akers. Yards created per touch. Akers, 1.43. Henderson, 2.14. Henderson wins. I got nothing. Here's the interesting thing about that, though. Average defenders in the box, Akers, 7.3, number 5 in the NFL. Henderson, as a rookie, 6.7. Basically, nobody cared that he was carrying the ball. They said, whatever, we'll stop the pass. Henderson had a lot easier to go than Akers did. Again, the same head of steam phenomenon. I think it's harder to tackle a guy that's running than a guy that's standing still. So anyway, we should probably talk about sample size at this point. Akers had 145 carries. Henderson had 43. So we're a lot more confident in Akers' top 20 yards created per touch than we are in Henderson's really, really elite yards created per touch as rookies. So as prospects, Akers definitely better than Henderson. Rookies, Akers better than Henderson. Now let's unlevel the playing field. So that was a level playing field. Now we're going to unlevel. We're going to stack the deck in Henderson's favor. We're looking at Henderson, the sophomore, versus Akers, the rookie. Akers, 625 yards. Henderson, 624 yards. It's a wash. Virtually the same. PFF grade. Akers, 69.5. Henderson, 79.2. Way better for Henderson. Here's the interesting thing. Henderson's season was literally a tale of two seasons. His first 8 games, 86.5 PFF grade, top of the league. Last 8 games, 56.8. Extremely replacement level. That's out of the league level. He was really bad over the last 8 games. Yards created per touch. Akers, 1.43. Henderson, 1.16. Advantage, heavily in favor of Akers. Defenders in the box. 7.3 for Akers, 6.9 for Henderson, even this year. Akers did more with less, repeatedly, at every point. I guess what I'm trying to say is, Akers does not have competition for touches. Akers has a change of pace back that, he'll see some touches. He'll get, 20, 30% of the touches. Akers will get 70% plus. Akers is going to eat first. When they go to the cafeteria, Akers eats first. When they're on the football field, Akers eats first. Akers is the running back.